Hello and welcome to the CNBC-TV18 special. We're coming to you from the World Economic Forum in Davos. Part of the conversations here in Davos continue to be on the need for greater gender parity. The business argument for that has been made over the years. It is clear, it has been acknowledged, but a lot more needs to be done, and that's exactly what we're attempting to do through the conversations that we're having here in Davos. Joining me now, a very special set of guests. Vinita Jain, the founder of one of India's oldest homegrown D2C brands, Biotique. Vinita, thanks very much for joining us. Also with us, Romal Shetty. Romal, thanks very much for joining us. And Debjani Ghosh of Nasscom. And here's an interesting story that I want to tell. It was a little over maybe 10 years ago that Debjani and I were in a similar panel. And she said to me that where are the role models in India? You either have Mother Teresa or Katrina Kaif, and there's no one in the middle. And that statement, Debjani, forced me to start an entire range of programming on CNBC-TV18. So thank you for the original idea. And that has really been the start of our journey here on CNBC-TV18 on why parity is important and the kind of economic opportunity that unleashes. So without further ado, Debjani, let me start by talking to you. Do we now have somewhere in the middle between Katrina Kaif and Mother Teresa in terms of role models?
We have you, girl, and you rock. No, absolutely. I mean, there are just so many amazing women, right? Whether you look at industry, you look at startups, amongst the founders, government. I mean, it feels proud when you look around, and especially in India. When you look around in India and you see the kind of women, the kind of work they are doing, I think we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, one of our successful entrepreneurs who started a company well before startups were being acknowledged in India. Vinita, you know, yours is a fascinating story because you came from a Marwari background where women were not encouraged to work and certainly not encouraged to start their own businesses or start their own ventures. What gave you the courage? What gave you the audacity to start then?
It was a passion. It is a passion. I grew up in the Himalayan mountains in my grandfather's tea plantations where studied the ancient sciences of Ayurveda, yoga and meditation, and I learned original Sanskrit. I combined it with 21st century biotechnology, so I combined the best of the East and the West and to preserve health and beauty for a lifetime because Ayurveda is the only science in the world who has found the elixir of youth.
Well, yes, and joining us now on the panel is Priya Agarwal as well. Priya, thanks very much for joining us. You know, we were just talking to Vinita about how she decided to get started and set up her own company, Biotique. And it's not very usual that we see in large Indian business families that women get to have a seat at the table. But your story is different. How did that come about?
So, I was lucky. That was never a cause for differentiation in our family. My brother and I were treated as, as equals, and wherever our dream and passion lied, honestly, we were pushed and always supported to head towards that direction. So really, I am lucky. And, especially in the sector that we are in, which is mining, it's quite a male-dominated sector, usually known as a male-dominated sector, But with everything that's happening today, it's amazing how it's transforming. Today, really, we're close to getting 30% women in our leadership. We have underground mines almost, run by women underground. And in 2019, women were allowed to, were legalized in India to go underground. We were the first company in Hindustan, Zinc, to get women underground, and it's amazing. I mean, I have goosebumps because when I speak to them,
listening to you say that.
When I speak to them, they say the safest we ever feel is when we are underground. And these are women who are lifting forklifts, who are doing the first rescue team of India, all women. The kind of things that they're doing, these are women, from Rajasthan who used to cover their head. And now they're here underground and doing all of this. So honestly, they inspire me every day. So if they can do it, there's no looking back.
No, I absolutely agree with you. But what I want to understand from you, Priya, is what made that 30% happen? What were the steps, what were the measures that you took to make that 30% happen, as well as to get women to do what traditionally has been a male-dominated industry? I mean, how did you get more women to come into mining?
Firstly, it's a mindset change. There's nothing a woman can't do. And, when you see these reports that say, whether the World Economic Forum report saying that we're 121 years behind, the rest of the world, we don't have that much time. And, you have reports saying that if 50% of our population, women, were in the workforce, the kind of, if we want that $5 trillion economy, it's not going to happen, or it's going to happen much quicker if we get our women working. And these are facts that we have to keep in mind. And looking at these facts, I think it's almost natural to do what we can to ensure that in every aspect of life we encourage them to join the workforce. And that really was the moment. I was a young woman when I joined the board. And at that time, I was the only woman and very young and a very nervous, anxious young woman on the board. But that was definitely one change that I knew, I had to drive. And today we can see that happening. And it's only the support from not only the family, but the entire management, the entire leadership. There's no the kind of policies that
Right.
they are creating. So it's really. It's a great welcome.
Usually we have only men on a panel. Today it's nice to see the men in minority. Romal, thanks very much for joining the conversation. But we've been talking about this for over a year now, Romal, since the time that we started this massive campaign on CNBC-TV18. And as Priya said, it requires commitment from the very top to ensure that you drive that change, that you bring in a facilitative policy environment that makes it truly an equal opportunity workplace. What are you seeing on that front today? Not just an acknowledgement, but actual action.
Yeah, so clearly I think, when we come back to our own business, I think the acknowledgement is important that in consulting, your solution is better if you really have a diverse team. And I think our clients realize that as well, all right? And sometimes when we're even in pitches, they're actually asking that,
Where are the women?
Where is your diversity really? So that is the first thing. The second bit is also to ensure that you take certain steps. For example, in our case, when I became the CEO, the first decision was to have at least 30%. In fact, we have 33% of our leadership team as women. And one of the things was always said is that, only people at this rank are eligible. I think leadership is about potential, not about your past performance. And if you can identify in women, so I think that is very important. The third is we delve from a philosophy of mentorship to sponsorship. Mentorship is about guiding people. Sponsorship is about actually helping you cross the line. So every one of our partners, we've got 500 partners, actually has 2 women candidates who they're sponsors for, not mentors for. So that actually also forces change as well. And we're talking about AI. So I'll tell you what we have done in AI. We've built a bias tool, an unconscious bias tool, to actually see what are the biases within. So within the firm, within the
What are the top 3?
Right? It's clearly that not capable, right? Or if you're a mother, for example, you want travel. Now, women actually says, did you ask me first of all?
Yeah.
Or did you just form an opinion that I can't do X or Y, right? And mining or anything else, our head of innovation, somebody who leads our digital innovation, is actually a lady, right?
Yeah.
So it's all these myths which women can't sell, right? So that's the other thing. All myths have been broken, and I guess when you when you put those role models out there, I think people realize that this is good for it's good for the business, good for everything. So it's just a mindset.
I absolutely agree with you. It is not just a social imperative, but it's also a business imperative. But Debjani, let's talk about you've got 2 mics coming at you, but let's talk about technology, because here we got a example where technology is actually being used to filter out the biases that may exist or that companies may encounter. But let's talk about the skills gap, because the fear is that as we move more into a digital world, that the women will fall further behind when it comes to skills for the future. Is that a fear that you believe is warranted, legitimate, and what needs to be done to address it?
It's actually a huge opportunity for women. Our industry, the tech industry, needs women like we have never needed them before, right? Today, we've already crossed 50% at hiring. Around 52% of new entrants into the industry are women. Right. On an average, it's around 36%, but globally, that's a fantastic number. We'll keep improving. The skill gap is becoming so big that we cannot afford to look at the existing legacy talent pool, which is largely male. We have to look at newer talent pools. We have to create newer talent pools. Huge opportunity, bring more women in. get them trained, bring them in. We've, in fact, as Nasscom and DSCI, we're running a huge program to just train women from tier 2, tier 3 in cybersecurity skills. One of the biggest needs in industry.
Yeah, and a big shortage.
Of the 2,000 trained, majority have got jobs. That's the demand. Data analytics. So the skills gap is actually a huge opportunity for women, because what it's doing in industry is it's finally taking away the filters and taking away the biases in, what Romal talked about that people have when they hire, because a CEO cannot afford to have those filters and biases anymore. The talent is just not there. So this is actually a fantastic opportunity for women.
Speaking of opportunities, Vinita, and I want to understand from your own experience of building out Biotique, especially getting more women involved at different levels of the organization, what has worked, what hasn't worked?
So upskilling women's talent, because learning is no longer only at the beginning of the career. Learning has to happen at every stage of career, and it's a continuous, and we don't know what the world will look like in 5 years, let alone 20 years. So I think upskilling men and women equally, that's the most important thing, and train for potential. And, and what women bring to the table is a touch of humanity. In today's world of generative AI, women have the human touch. So it's very important to upskill men and women equally. That's number one. And it's also important for men to understand that they cannot only hire and promote people like themselves. It's important for them to understand that gender diversity will bring in more equality in the workplace, more voice and better quality of work. And women, and they have to understand there is a certain difference in men and women. If suppose a man is only 80% ready to take up a job, he will say, I'm perfectly ready, and jump and take up the job. But if a woman is 125% ready to take up a job, she will say, oh, I'm not ready, I'm not sure if I'll be successful, and I have inhibitions, and she may not understand. So it's important that the boards and the senior leadership understand that women, this difference, this subtle difference in men and women.
And you're right in pointing that out. But as someone who's sitting on a board of an organization on taking decisions today, Priya, what are the things that have worked within the organization? What are the things that you're attempting to change to ensure that you don't just hire, but you also retain the talent?
I think it's very important, and I think now we're working towards not just women. We're working towards inclusivity as a whole, and I think just as you said, it's so important to have policies in place to ensure the entire atmosphere is made such that they're not just hired, but they stay there forever and more. For example, we've gone beyond now, and we've started hiring transgender individuals and individuals with disabilities, individuals of all different aspects of diversity and inclusivity that you could have imagined. But for us, it was very important to ensure, because these are in our factories and etc., all in different in rural areas of the country, and we have to be mindful that when we're hiring individuals of different diversity, that everyone, the policies are so strict, and everyone is educated about the entire array of diversity. So when we did start the transgender hiring, we made a policy, for example, that I was talking to a few of them last year, and they really said that the one thing that would really help them and benefit them is and something very important to them is gender affirmation surgeries. So we implemented 200,000 rupees, 2 lakh rupees towards the gender affirmation surgeries, plus a 1 month unpaid leave. No questions asked. We've also implemented policies for women that are no question asked, policies where you can take a day off each month without having to say what the issue is. So we have to not only educate, and we have to create policies that ensure they live, and then they stay and they flourish in the environment around them.
Debjani, the question I want to ask you is, why are there so few women leaders in tech today, not just in India, but even globally? And how do we fix that?
Two issues, right? It's a push and a pull issue, right? On one hand, the first, legacy leadership has primarily been one gender. And usually when you hire, in fact, I was thinking Romal's going to say that, one of the biggest biases is you believe the best person to do the job is the one who's exactly like you.
Yeah.
And if you are a male, you are going to believe that the best person to do the job should be male. And it's maybe unconscious or whatever, but it is a bias. A lot of people, and same with women, by the way. If I'm looking at a successor, I would look first at women and then at men. So this is a bias, and because it is pretty much driven by one gender, it's a dominant gender, that has played a role. Right, which is slowly breaking. We have some really good CEOs who are saying, my succession plan must have a woman in it. Second, we need more ambition. We need women to be way more ambitious than what they are today. A lot of women will not put their hands up for the top job. Going back to Vinita's point about I may not be qualified and all of that nonsense, but a lot of women who also are qualified somehow do not want to put their hands up. And maybe this has to do with balance and family. And I think at some point, we have to figure out, today when you look at a CEO, I completely do not agree that a CEO's job has to be one where he or she has no time for family, no time for anything else.
Yeah.
We have to change some of those things. We have to rewrite the job descriptions. Right? Because every job description today is written from the lens of a male. We have to rewrite the leadership job description. So we build in the time for family. We build in the time for work-life balance. For both men and women.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point that I was going to make when I heard you say that women feel like they're not ambitious enough, or the perception is that women are not ambitious enough. There's only so many hours in the day, and if women are expected to play the part of caregiver, the part of homemaker, as well as doing well at work, you're juggling balls all the time, and so this is the easier one to give up on, because you become the primary caregiver, homemaker, etc. But Romal, to Debjani's point, to ensure that we truly create an equal opportunity workplace, an equal opportunity economy, an equal opportunity society, this rewriting of roles, this sharing of the load, the sharing of the burden is necessary. It's important. It's imperative. How do you drive that?
And so two things. I think one is, to question of, why there are so few women leaders. Do we really marketing is maybe a wrong word. Do we really showcase idols? I can tell you that, when my global leaders come and meet Debjani, they're like just blown away, right? In terms of the way she's articulates, the way she gives her vision. Are we doing enough of women leaders? Because when other women watch you, Shireen, people like you, they would say, hey, that's what I want to be. But it has to be there constantly. The second is the mindset. This thing is absolutely true, even in so many of the professionals that I see, that, I'll not go for it. It's, I have the capability, or I don't think I'm there. And there are men who are halfway and who say that I can do it. The mindset is extremely important. So I guess if you can do role models, and a lot more, if you can sort of, change the mindset and then create an ecosystem that celebrates this balance. I think we need to celebrate. So in our case, for example, what we do is all of the diversity cases, we run a series called Inspired By. Inspired By is about, a normal individual, not a Shireen one, but a normal individual who goes on to do something incredible, and everybody in the firm watches and says, wow, I want to be like that, right? So I think that's what we're trying to do to change some of this. Also, in our case, for example, 7 of the top 10 chairpersons in the world, in the Deloitte world, are all women. Right? It's a start. It doesn't mean, right, maybe we still need to do the CEOs as well, but it's a start. Right? And I think that's what will push. And all of us have KPIs. Like in my business, I've said all my sub-businesses, it's not only the main business, 33% should be women. So it pushes you to do things.
A good place to start is schools. I don't know if it's done as yet, but we have to make our books completely gender neutral or take out gender from our books. Because at least when I was growing up, it was always about he becoming a doctor and he becoming a lawyer and he becoming whatever, and made no sense.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and that's what we're hoping to do. The diversity of representation that we're trying to create here to show that women can truly do anything that they want to do, as long as there is an environment that allows them that opportunity. That's the attempt. But Vinita, let's talk about the journey from here on, because you've been able to build this company, you've scaled it up. A possible IPO is something that you're considering as well. So is that the next target that you've set for yourself?
Yes. Biotique is planning its own IPO in 2025. Biotique is a zero debt, privately held company, and and unlike other companies which are just going for funding, and we have grown with 30% year on year. So we've had extraordinary growth over the last 20 years and a double-digit bottom line. So our IPO will be very interesting, and we are looking at 2025 to go IPO.
Well, that's certainly going to be an interesting one to watch out for. But while you were setting up Biotique, which were the role models that you looked up to? I mean, everyone here is talking about the lack of role models. Who were you looking up to say, this is who I would like to model myself on?
No, I actually wanted to preserve health and beauty for a lifetime. That was my passion, and Ayurveda is the elixir of youth. So I wanted to be beautiful and young myself,
forever.
So that's the reason I started the company, honestly. And then I saw that lots of other people wanted to be beautiful and young forever. So that's the genesis of the company. It was not perfectly business, but it was a passion to preserve health and beauty for a lifetime, which is becoming the buzzword today. So Ayurveda actually has understood how to preserve. It's the elixir of youth.
So you truly converted your passion and your wish list into a very viable, very profitable and successful business. Absolutely. Priya, so what's the road ahead as far as you're concerned? What are the next set of things that you're hoping to do, not just from a parity perspective, but to really ensure that you create an equal opportunity workplace?
Firstly, I'd like to take an example of what India is doing. I think what's amazing is that we're actually moving from women empowerment to women-led development, and that's something we want to start replicating in the organization. I mean, and one of the greatest examples of that is the Swachh Bharat by our Prime Minister, and how women really led the way there to ensure they were the ambassadors for freeing open defecation. And I think that's what we really need to start driving now. It's no more about women empowerment. We no longer should be calling ourselves women leaders. You're leaders. There's no exactly what everyone's been talking about. We have to head towards a complete inclusive environment where you are there because you deserve to be there, because because you have the passion and the want to be there, and there's no D&I reason or keeping you back. And I think that's really the way we want to go.
Debjani, let's talk about the big India story at this point in time, which includes the startups. And what we are seeing within that ecosystem as well is the imbalance. And a lot of the women founders who we have spoken to do believe that, again, the bias comes in the way of being able to access funds, being able to start businesses that typically are not seen as women-led businesses. So if you're doing high tech and you're a woman, then, you get looked at differently. From that perspective, do you believe women-only funds is perhaps an answer, or to bridge the gap, to close the gap? What do you believe we need to look at, and what should we do differently?
See, I'll just take a step back. The biggest challenge ahead of the tech industry is to get AI right. It is a foundational technology. It's going to disrupt everything. It's going to change every business model. We have to get it right. Some of the biggest problems we're grappling with in AI is trust. It's alignment. These are some of the core problems we are today grappling with, right? Personally, I'm convinced that you cannot solve for these problems without getting women in, without expanding the AI horizon, without bringing diverse voices in, diverse opinions in. So for this industry, if job one is to get AI right in the next few years, we have to figure out how to make women a core part of this industry. Absolutely, right? So it becomes imperative for the industry. Now the question is whether it's startups, whether it's big companies, right? Now the question is, how do you do that, and what policies, etc., do you need to change? Yes, for startups, it's not just women, funds for women. I think that always helps. But even existing funds, we have to remove the gender biases that exist. You know, I honestly think someone should publish a dashboard for all the VCs to say how many women, founders have you invested in.
Yeah.
We have to hold up the mirror at some point in time. But I just think we have to build this into everything that exists, because we're entering a stage where, or we're getting into a phase where time's running out. We have to figure out some of these challenges of alignment, of trust, if we want AI to scale, going back to the conversation we were having without the panel, before the panel. If AI doesn't scale, then what good is it? Where's the promise,
the transformative impact that everyone's talking about? Yeah. Well, Romal, in conversation with CEOs, in conversation with the clients that you have, is this one of the top priorities, at this point in time, in the top 3 priorities from a CEO's point of view?
It's definitely amongst the CEO's a priority. May not be top 3, but definitely a priority at the board and at the CEO level. It's clearly a priority. So, but I guess, like I said, there are 2 or 3 things which I think is also important. One is, we do work with a non-banking financial services company in northern part of India. It's interesting that the data analytics reveal that when you give a loan to a lady, right, even at 1% lower interest rates, you actually still make more money than a man, more because the pride of women of not defaulting is much higher than men.
Yeah.
The second bit, I think, in corporate India as well, is the retention problem, which is 52% now. In fact, in our campuses, 52% women come in at the entry level, but at the middle level, and we sometimes as corporates also say, what happens at your home is your problem. You come here, I think you can't segregate that. You need to provide help and assistance during that particular time. If you're able to help, whatever, it's not necessarily the family way. It could be some issues that if you can help manage, right, you don't get intrusive, but if you can help manage, and if they can tide over that 1.5 years, you'll see a lot more women leaders, because we're seeing at the middle level them falling off. And that's important at that level, that 18-24 months, if you can support.
Vinita, as a founder yourself, what did you do to encourage bringing more women into the workforce and, in getting them to take on leadership roles as well?
So one of the most important things when it comes to nature and nurture, women, there is certain stages of life that women need to leapfrog to become higher up, because when you're having a baby. So our organization has a parental leave policy, flexi work hour policy, especially at the time that a woman needs to leapfrog that critical phase in her career, because most women have the work, the load of running their house and their family. So they have responsibilities. So I think our organization is always working out with the concerned person how to leapfrog those critical phases of life.
Yeah, since we're talking about leapfrogging, that's the perfect segue to close the conversation. I'm going to ask you to start, Priya. The one thing that you would like to leapfrog with, what's the one idea, what's the one thought, what's the one wish?
I want to say a story about one of the ladies that is our head of security, and who I met a few months ago.
And she's the head of security
she's
where
the head
exactly?
of security at Hindustan Zinc.
Okay.
And actually last year when I met her, she told me, Priya, I have only 2 dreams in my life. And she's part of the LGBTQ community. She said that I want to get my mother a house and I want to adopt a baby girl. So this is a very special occasion, because only a few weeks ago she called me and she said, you know what, I've done both. She just adopted a baby girl and she had gotten her mother a house. So really, honestly,
more power to her.
So it's there's nothing that, follow your dreams, whatever and whatever dream you have, and this is something, I can say that my father's always told me, if you know you're doing the right thing, be fearless and just keep your feet on the ground, and then you can accomplish anything. So that's just really my message to all the women out there. Just go for it.
Absolutely. Just go for it. Be fearless and do what your heart tells you to do. Debjani, the one thing that you would like to leapfrog with?
I think the skills supply chain is going to become most important for overall supply chain resilience and business continuity. And I want women to be the must-have for a successful scale supply chain strategy. You cannot think about it without thinking women. And to do that, we have to get clever. You know, Vinita talked about upskilling and reskilling. I think we're losing that battle, by the way, because technology is changing way faster than we can skill people. But I do believe we are going into a generation of co-pilots. For everyone, we are going to have a co-pilot, wherever our job is. There is going to be a co-pilot helping us with that. If we can get clever and start training women more on cognitive, analytic, creative skills and ability to manage this co-pilot process better than anyone else, they're going to rock. So I really want women to be key for supply chain resilience.
Romal?
I think today's real volatile world requires IQ and EQ. And I do believe that that combination is probably better. For whatever reasons, it is better with women. So you need more women leaders, and you do need my wish is really that mindset that, I mean, I was trained by 3 women, and today I'm the CEO, but I can tell you that the credit is to them of who trained me.
That's why you're so nice.
So I really do believe that mindset, if they can change, we'll see a lot more women leaders.
Well, this is a panel where I will give the last word to the only man on our session, but it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your personal stories, but also more important, sharing your insights on what needs to be done to ensure that we do create equal opportunity workplaces, because that truly is going to unlock the potential, not just for India, but for economies around the world. When you unleash the economic potential that women offer, I think we will all be in a much better place. Vinita, Romal, Debjani and Priya, thank you very much for joining us here on Powered by Parity. Appreciate your time, and thank you so much for joining us in Davos. That's it then on this special conversation from Davos from all of us here on Powered by Parity. Thanks very much for watching.